The National Assembly had reservations and gave reasons why the target set by the executive to get the 2018 budget passed on time and return to the January-December budget cycle might be a pipe dream. They said they don't want to do a shoddy job. Is the budget cycle adjustment plan unrealistic? Are the frivolous, inappropriate, unclear and wasteful figures real? Is it too late to cut the waste? Well, let me just remind you, as soon as Mr. Eze Onyekwere of the Center for Social Justice and some of his team came together and identified some of these frivolous items in the budget, we brought him and we were able to show you some of them. Let me quickly show you some of these perhaps unclear items in the budget. Perhaps this is one from the Secretary to the Government of the Federation. Issues of where you will find an item from last budget reappearing in the 2018 budget. If you flip the page to the presidency, stuff like rent and the question of who is paying the rent, and some of the items are repeated over time. The organization had recommended that the federal government should save as much as 209 billion naira as part of their recommendations if all some of these unclear and wasteful estimates in the 20 budget are looked into. But this time around, they're telling the National Assembly, the lawmakers and the executive what exactly needs to be done if the 2018 budget must live to expectation and perhaps world-recognized standards. We thought that we will be able to bring Senator Itai Nango's promise to be on the program to tell us where exactly we are on the 2018 budget passage. The question will be the budget cycle on one hand, the issue of implementation on one hand, and now the 2018 is here again. The question, a big one, will be how realistic the long-term plan that the federal government has had and how this 2018 budget is able to key into that. Did you find out how this will play out?
Well, the long-term plan of the federal government generally is to develop Nigeria. And then if you look at the budget cycle, they were talking about making sure that the budget is passed early. You can see that it's no longer realistic. And I did say earlier that they're still implementing 2017 budget as at today. So what I expect is that the National Assembly should move expeditiously, see if they can get this budget out latest by the end of the first quarter so that the implementation can start by the beginning of the second quarter. Now, although most of the codes in the budget are prefixed with the ERGP code tag of Economic Reform and Group Plan, I think many of them still have some form of, you cannot really find resonance in that very good plan. Now, take for instance, even if we are to go back, we have privatized the distribution leg, okay, of the power sector, but the federal government is still busy putting in lots of money under the Rural Electrification Agency to put electricity in communities. And as soon as they finish doing that, the distribution companies simply line up and start collecting tariff. Even if the federal government says they still retain some shares, 40%, are they converting this thing into capital which will be, acknowledged at the end of the day? So you must reconcile your policies and plans with the budget, with what you are doing. And also look at the capital side of the budget. We have been in this ritual for so long. So many projects suffused in the budget. The money available cannot even pay for up to 1/10 of the projects. And so we continue carrying over projects year after year. And we've been making these recommendations that why don't you pick the projects you can implement realistically over the lifespan of the administration? Or now you have less than 1 year or two to go. Just do some and let us see that you have achieved this, rather than giving us the impression you are going to do 1,000 projects when the money that is available cannot pay for up to 100. So these are some of the issues
sorry if I may quickly butt in here. Sorry, if I may quickly butt in here. You talked about the positives. A few of them that you have listed. It's not all doom and gloom. If you may pick maybe one or two of the positives in this budget and the way to go quickly before we now come to your recommendations and the solutions to some of these issues.
Yes, it's there that the budget was presented a little bit earlier, but that's not so good enough in November, because in the past 2 years we've been having it in December. So if they had brought it a bit lower, like maybe September, October, we could have been talking about passing it before December or latest in early January. Yes, the idea that we need to improve tax to GDP, improve tax administration is something that is welcome, because we are far behind even compared to other countries in West Africa, because our government seems to have been lazy in terms of collecting taxes. So these are good ideas. Improvements in ease of doing business, yes, that's good. We also expect further improvements this year. So it's not all gloom, but we are trying to see how we can marry whatever has been achieved with the intentions that going forward, so that we can have more positives than gloom at the end of the year. But the big challenge is that beyond the ERGP, we cannot track deliverables in terms of expected outcomes at the end of the budget year through the spending of the respective MDAs. For instance, there's nothing there as a target in employment generation. If you are spending 8.6 trillion, how many new jobs do you want to create at the end of the year? It is not stated there. So a lot of things are still not clear about the budgeting framework and the template. They still need to be reviewed, so that at the end of the day, if you are presenting a budget, we see what you made available in the last year. I mean, there was a provision for it. What actually did you release? So what is outstanding? And then what are you expecting after you finish implementing the budget, so that people can actually follow the template and have a proper way of monitoring and following up on the budget. But today, what you see is that projects are repeated over the years, and it becomes impossible to follow how much actually has been disbursed for each and every one of them.
Mr. Oyekwere, quickly, because of our time, we need to close now. And I want us to anchor on this point. This government, the Buhari government, has had, this is going to be their third budget proposal. Well, yeah, I think, yeah, it's about the third or so. If you look at the progression of some of the budget that they've proposed from 2016 to 2017, and this is the 2018 budget proposal, has there been any major development that you have seen in the way the government has handled the business of budget preparation?
Well, not much has changed. It's more or less a continuation of the norm. The only thing we've seen is that maybe from instead of December, we had it in November last year. Not much has changed. And so even in terms of implementation, both 2015, 2016, and 2017, not much has actually changed. But that's why we're making these recommendations, hoping that there will be changes going forward.
We understand that you've sent this document to them, the National Assembly, and of course, we understand also the executive are privy to this, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. It's been sent to the National Assembly, and we're also sending it to the executive.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Oyekwere. The recommendations that you have made on the screen that we've talked about, thank you so much. We hope that the federal government and the National Assembly will look into some of these recommendations and make the 2018 budget a better one, but we'll anchor on that. Thank you so much for your time on the program, everyone. I'm Seun Okinbaloye. Bye-bye.